What if one arms deal could quietly redraw the balance of power across an entire region? In March 2026, President Donald Trump stood before a room full of global investors in Miami and said something that sent shockwaves through defense ministries from Tel Aviv to Tehran. He said the United States had agreed to sell Saudi Arabia, for the very first time, the F-35, the most advanced, most secretive, most politically sensitive fighter jet ever built. This isn't just a weapons deal. This isn't geopolitical earthquake dressed in stealth technology. And today, we're breaking down exactly what it means for Saudi Arabia, for Israel, for Iran, and for you as someone trying to understand where the Middle East is actually heading. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why this single aircraft changes everything. First, let's talk about the airplane itself, because the F-35 is not just a fighter jet, it's a flying supercomputer. The F-35A, the variant Saudi Arabia is reportedly seeking, is what military planners call a fifth-generation multi-role stealth aircraft. It combines low radar visibility, advanced sensor fusion, and networked battlefield awareness into a single platform. The U.S. Air Force describes it as fusing and distributing more battlefield information than any previous fighter in history. Think of it less like a weapon and more like a nerve center that happens to carry missiles. It can suppress enemy air defenses. It can conduct deep strikes behind enemy lines. It can coordinate targeting data for older aircraft flying alongside it, and it does all of this while being extremely difficult for radar systems to detect. Now, here's the part that most people miss. When a country buys the F-35, they're not just buying a jet. They are buying into a dense American ecosystem, training, software, maintenance, mission data management that creates a long-term dependency on the United States. That is not an accident. That is a feature, a strategic feature, and we'll come back to why that matters enormously in this deal. So, when did all of this start? Back in November 2025, reports surfaced that Saudi Arabia's request for up to 48 F-35 aircraft had cleared a key Pentagon hurdle. Then, on November 17, 2025, Trump publicly confirmed it, converting what had been a behind-the-scenes discussion into an overt presidential commitment. The White House followed up by stating Trump had approved a broader defense package that included future F-35 deliveries, embedding the aircraft inside a U.S.-Saudi strategic defense agreement. Then, in March 2026, at the Future Investment Priority Summit in Miami, Trump said it again, and this time with even more confidence. He called it, quote, perhaps the most capable fighter jet ever built, and framed the sale as both a strategic reward for Riyadh and a symbol of a deepening alliance. Now, here's where it gets complicated, and this is the part the headlines usually skip over. As of late March 2026, there has been no formal public notification through the Defense Security Cooperation Agency, which is the official legal channel required under the Arms Export Control Act, before any major foreign military sale can actually be completed. So what we have is this, a president who has twice publicly declared this sale is happening, but the formal government paperwork has not yet caught up. The White House has chosen a direction. The bureaucratic machinery is still moving. That gap between political declaration and legal completion is the most important analytical fact in this entire story. Now let's talk force posture, because this is where things get genuinely consequential. Saudi Arabia already operates one of the most advanced fourth-generation air fleets in the world, including the F-15SA, a heavily upgraded variant of the iconic American fighter. They have Typhoons from the UK. They spend enormous sums on air defense systems. But the F-35 would add something fundamentally different, a penetrative, survivable fifth-generation layer. In practical terms, this means Saudi Arabia would gain the ability to plan strikes against heavily defended targets, the kind that can shoot down conventional aircraft. It would gain the ability to suppress modern air defense systems, and it would gain a platform capable of feeding targeting data to its entire existing fleet, dramatically improving the effectiveness of aircraft it already owns. A fleet of up to 48 F-35As would not merely modernize the Royal Saudi Air Force, it would reposition the kingdom from a buyer of elite conventional capability into a prospective operator of the West's most politically controlled stealth combat system. That is not a small upgrade. That is a doctrinal transformation. And for Riyadh, the symbolism is just as powerful as the hardware. Joining the F-35 club sends a message to the entire region, and especially to Tehran, about where Saudi Arabia stands and who stands behind it. Here's the part of this story that doesn't get nearly enough attention. Under long-standing U.S. law and policy, Washington is legally required to ensure that Israel retains a qualitative military edge over potential regional adversaries. This is known as the QME, Qualitative Military Edge, and it shapes every major arms transfer in the Middle East. So when Trump says he's selling F-35s to Saudi Arabia, the immediate question in defense circles is, what version are they actually getting? Reporting from November 2025 indicated that any Saudi F-35s would be less capable than the F-35I Adir, the highly customized Israeli variant that has been modified with Israeli-specific weapons, electronic warfare systems, and avionics that no other country is permitted to field. In other words, even if Saudi Arabia becomes the first Arab F-35 operator, the aircraft it receives will almost certainly be configured to remain below Israel's level, controlled through software permissions, weapons access restrictions, mission system limitations, and delivery sequencing. This is not speculation. This is how Washington has historically managed the tension between expanding Gulf partnerships and its statutory obligations to Israel. The sale becomes a highly engineered transfer, designed to give Saudi Arabia a transformational capability while preserving a strategic ceiling. Israel is watching this closely. Israeli officials and defense planners have publicly viewed the prospective sale through the lens of regional air superiority, even while broader normalization talks remain in play. The outcome, if the deal proceeds, will not be simple. It will be carefully calibrated, and that calibration is itself a story about American power, the ability to upgrade an ally and constrain them at the same time. There's one more dimension to this deal that elevates it far beyond a standard arms sale, and that is China. Saudi Arabia's growing economic and technological ties with Beijing have generated persistent concern inside Washington. There are serious questions about data exposure, infrastructure vulnerabilities, and the security risks of giving a strategically hedging partner access to one of the most sensitive military systems ever built. The modern F-35 ecosystem depends on tightly controlled software management, classified support architecture, and networked data handling. That makes counterintelligence not a side issue, it is a central issue. So why approve the sale at all? Because from Washington's perspective, the strategic logic cuts both ways. Approving the F-35 transfer can be read as an attempt to bind Saudi Arabia more tightly to the American defense industrial base and reduce the incentive for Riyadh to seek prestige military technology from China. You buy the F-35, you buy into America. Your pilots train with American instructors, your maintenance teams use American systems, your upgrade cycles run through American approvals. That is an extraordinary level of long-term alignment. Trump's broader Saudi package makes this logic explicit. Nearly $142 billion in defense arrangements, Saudi investment commitments approaching $1 trillion, and major non-NATO ally status, all packaged together as one integrated narrative of shared deterrence and industrial partnership. Major non-NATO ally status doesn't come with a treaty defense guarantee, but it unlocks military cooperation privileges, eases arms transfer pathways, and sends a clear political signal about where the relationship stands. This is the F-35 as strategic lock-in, a mechanism designed to shape Gulf alignment for the next generation at a time when the Middle East is diversifying its options and Washington needs its partners anchored. So where does this go from here? The first thing to watch is formal congressional notification.
Once a Saudi F-35 case is transmitted through the official legal review process, we will finally be able to judge the administration's true intent by looking at the number of aircraft, delivery schedule, configuration details, and software permissions attached to the package. Congress will scrutinize this carefully. Questions about Israel's edge, regional escalation risks, and technology protection will dominate the debate. Lockheed Martin and the U.S. defense bureaucracy will need to plan a full sustainment program. Fifth-generation exports are not one-time deliveries. They are decade-long operational programs involving training pipelines, upgrade governance, and mission data management. And Saudi Arabia itself will need to demonstrate it can absorb the platform, secure networks, trained manpower, a disciplined sustainment culture, and a command architecture capable of exploiting everything the F-35 actually offers. If this deal crosses the finish line, Saudi Arabia becomes the first Arab F-35 operator and only the second Middle Eastern state to field stealth aviation, after Israel. That is a historic marker in the region's military balance. If it stalls, the episode still reveals something important. Washington is now openly using the possibility of F-35 access as a strategic tool for managing Gulf partnerships and signaling American primacy in the region's long-term military order. Either way, something fundamental has shifted. The F-35 announcement is not just about Saudi Arabia getting a new jet. It's about how the United States is choosing to manage its alliances, contain China's influence in the Gulf, preserve Israel's strategic edge, and position itself at the center of the Middle East's next chapter. This story is still unfolding, and we'll be tracking every development as it happens. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that like button, subscribe for more in-depth geopolitical analysis, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this deal actually goes through? And what does it mean for regional stability? I'll see you in the next one.